July 15, 1992. Wimbledon Common, southwest London. A warm summer morning. Rachel Nickell left her home with her 2-year-old son Alex and the family dog, a golden retriever named Molly. It was their routine, a walk through the common, fresh air, a normal Tuesday morning. Andre Hanscom, Rachel's partner and Alex's father, was working as a courier that day. He stopped on his route to call home and check in. A man's voice answered the phone. Andre said his blood ran cold. He just knew, immediately, that something was seriously wrong. Rachel Nickell was 23 years old. She was found on Wimbledon Common, stabbed 49 times. Her 2-year-old son Alex was found by a passerby, clinging to her body, physically unharmed. The only witness to his mother's murder. He was 2 years old. Rachel Jane Nickell was born November 23, 1968. She grew up in London and by her early 20s was working as a model. She was 23 years old at the time of her death, described by everyone who knew her as warm, vibrant, and full of life. She lived near Wimbledon Common with her partner Andre Hanscom and their son Alex, a little boy she adored. She still had the smell of cocoa by Chanel. That is what Alex remembered most when he grew up. Her smell, her smile, the sound of her voice. Rachel Nickell was not famous before she died. She became known to the entire country because of how she died and because of what happened next. On the morning of July 15, 1992, Rachel and Alex set out on their usual walk across Wimbledon Common. The Common is a large open park, popular with dog walkers, families, joggers, a place people felt safe. While passing through a more secluded wooded area, Rachel was attacked. She was sexually assaulted. She was stabbed 49 times in the neck and torso. She died at the scene. Alex was physically unharmed. A passerby found him clinging to his mother's body. He was 2 years old. He had seen everything. The killing of Rachel Nickell became a national fixation almost immediately. A young mother, broad daylight, a public park, her toddler watching. The British public was horrified. The Metropolitan Police were under enormous pressure. Find him now. That pressure would lead them to destroy an innocent man's life and allow a monster to keep killing. Forensic technology in 1992 was not advanced enough to properly analyze the tiny speck of biological material recovered from the scene. After a full month of investigation, police could not even definitively confirm whether the killer was male or female. Desperate for a lead, investigators brought in a forensic psychologist named Paul Britton, who had become famous for creating profiles of serial killers. Britton described the killer as likely a socially isolated man in his 20s or 30s, living near Wimbledon Common, with interests in the occult, knives, and violent sexual fantasies. When the profile and a police sketch were featured in a national television appeal, several callers identified the same man, a local named Colin Stagg. He was unemployed. He lived alone. He walked his dog on the common. Police found books about the occult in his flat, satanic imagery, strange symbols drawn on the carpet. He fit the profile. There was just one problem. There was no evidence connecting him to the murder. Colin Stagg was 29 years old. He was shy, socially awkward. He had low self-esteem. He had never had a proper girlfriend. He was not a killer, but he fit the profile. And the Metropolitan Police, under enormous public and media pressure, had decided he was their man. What followed was one of the most controversial undercover operations in British criminal history. Operation Edsel. A female officer using the fake identity Lizzie James was assigned to build a romantic relationship with Colin over several months. Through more than 40 letters, numerous phone calls, and in-person meetings, the conversations became increasingly sexual and psychologically manipulative. Lizzie James told Colin she could only be with a man who had done something terrible. She pushed. She probed. She manipulated. Colin Stagg said later, "I had low self-esteem before this all started. I'd never had a proper girlfriend up to the point of 29. So when I received a letter from Lizzie James, I just felt really happy that a woman had shown interest in me." He never confessed, not once, because there was nothing to confess. But in August of 1993, police arrested him anyway. Colin Stagg was charged with the murder of Rachel Nickell. He had spent more than a year being psychologically manipulated by an undercover officer. He maintained his innocence from the first moment to the last. He was taken into custody, and across Britain, a public that trusted its police decided he was guilty.
Colin Stagg stood trial at the Old Bailey in September 1994. He had spent 13 months in custody waiting for that moment. The case collapsed almost immediately. The trial judge, Mr. Justice Ognall, reviewed the evidence, or rather, the lack of it. He condemned Operation Edzell in terms that left no ambiguity. He called it deceptive conduct of the grossest kind. He said the undercover operation was a honey trap, an attempt to psychologically construct a confession from a man who had never given one. With no DNA, no physical evidence, no witness who had actually seen Colin commit the crime, the prosecution withdrew the case. Colin Stagg walked free. And then he stepped outside the Old Bailey into a mob. The crowd screamed at him, "Guilty! Hang him! Guilty!" The police told Rachel's father they would keep the file open but would not pursue anyone else. The implication was clear. They still believed Colin Stagg had killed Rachel Nickell. He had simply gotten away with it. Colin returned to his flat, where he would spend the next 14 years as a social pariah. Death threats, harassment, abuse from strangers. A man the British public had decided was a murderer who had done nothing wrong. And somewhere out there, the real killer was free. While Colin Stagg was being prosecuted for a murder he didn't commit, Robert Napper was moving through South London almost unnoticed. Robert Clive Napper was born February 25, 1966. He grew up in Plumstead, southeast London, not far from where Rachel and Andre lived. His childhood was deeply troubled. His father was violent. His parents divorced, and Napper and his 3 siblings were placed in foster care and received psychiatric treatment. At age 12, Napper claimed he was sexually abused by a family friend. Those who knew him said his personality changed after that. He grew introverted, aggressive, reclusive. He was eventually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and Asperger's syndrome. In 1986, aged 19, he received his first criminal record for carrying a loaded gun in public. And then the attacks began. In 1989, Napper began a string of sexual assaults on women along the Green Chain Walk, a series of leafy pathways linking parts of southeast London. He planned his attacks in meticulous detail. He kept maps. He marked locations of paths, surveillance spots, and hiding places. He carried a rape kit and knives. His victims were usually young women walking alone, sometimes with their children. He attacked at least 70 women across southeast London over 4 years, possibly as many as 106. He was known by investigators as the Green Chain Rapist, and the Metropolitan Police had his name. They just didn't follow up. In October 1989, 3 years before Rachel Nickell was murdered, Napper's own mother called the Metropolitan Police.
Her son had confessed to her that he had raped a woman on Plumstead Common. She was telling them his name. She was handing them her own son. Police could find no reports of the specific assault she described. They dismissed the tip. They never followed up. His mother later said, "I told them my son had raped a woman, but they said there'd been no rape and that he must have made it up. Now I know it was missed and that he went on to murder. I can't believe they let him slip through their fingers. I feel so sorry." She eventually disowned her son. She burned every family photo she had of him. In 1992, just 7 weeks before Rachel Nickell was killed, Napper grabbed a 22-year-old mother pushing her 2-year-old daughter in a buggy along the Green Chain Walk in broad daylight. He strangled her, battered her, raped her, as her child watched. The woman survived. During the Green Chain rape inquiry, investigators received calls from 2 different citizens reporting that Napper resembled a police sketch of the suspect. Both times, police attempted to contact Napper to obtain a blood sample. Both times, he failed to appear at the local station. Both times, police did nothing further. And in July 1992, Robert Napper murdered Rachel Nickell. In November 1993, 16 months after Rachel Nickell was murdered, while Colin Stagg sat in custody waiting for his trial, Robert Napper struck again. He broke into the home of 27-year-old Samantha Bissett in Plumstead. He stabbed her more than 70 times. He then went to the bedroom of her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. He raped and suffocated her, and covered her body in the bed, surrounding her with toys, as if she were asleep. Samantha's boyfriend, Conrad Elam, discovered them the next day. "The first thing I saw was a stain on the carpet, which turned out to be Sam's blood." Detectives investigating the Bissett murders immediately noted the overwhelming similarities to the Nickell killing. They sat down with the Nickell detectives to share their theory that the same man had committed both crimes. The Nickell detectives, who already had Colin Stagg in custody, rejected the suggestion with hostility. They had their man. They were wrong. And Samantha Bissett and Jasmine were dead because of it. In October 1995, Napper pleaded guilty to the Bissett murders on the grounds of diminished responsibility. He was sentenced to indefinite detention at Broadmoor Hospital. When questioned about Rachel Nickell, he insisted he had been at work the day she was killed. The case against Colin Stagg officially went cold for years. Then in 2002, a decade after Rachel's murder, forensic scientists applied a new technique called low copy number DNA analysis to re-examine evidence from the Wimbledon Common crime scene. They extracted a partial male DNA profile from evidence that had previously been undetectable. The profile was run against the National DNA Database. It matched Robert Napper. In 2004, paint flecks found at the Nickell crime scene were matched to Napper's metal toolbox. In 2007, further DNA testing confirmed the match beyond any doubt. In December 2007, Napper was charged with the murder of Rachel Nickell. He was already in Broadmoor. He had been there for 12 years. All those years, the wrong man had been living under a cloud of public suspicion. The right man had been receiving psychiatric care. On December 18, 2008, 16 years after Rachel Nickell was murdered on Wimbledon Common, Robert Napper stood before the Old Bailey. He pleaded guilty to her manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The court heard that psychiatrists agreed he had Asperger's syndrome and paranoid schizophrenia at the time of the killing. Mr. Justice Griffiths Williams sentenced him to indefinite detention at Broadmoor and told him, "You are on any view a very dangerous man." Napper is suspected of carrying out up to 106 rapes, indecent assaults, and other offenses across southeast London. He refuses to admit to anything for which there is no forensic evidence. On the same day, Scotland Yard formally apologized to Colin Stagg. Assistant Commissioner John Yates wrote to him and made a public statement. Colin Stagg was completely innocent of any involvement in the case. Stagg received £706,000 in compensation for his wrongful arrest and prosecution. One of the first things he did with that money was donate a significant portion to a wounded veterans charity. Andre Hanscom, Rachel's partner, traveled from Spain to see Napper brought to court. A member of the Crown Prosecution Service had shown Andre a report confirming that police negligence was partially to blame for Rachel's murder. If Napper had been stopped in 1989 when his mother reported him, Rachel would have lived. Samantha Bissett would have lived. Jasmine would have lived. Colin Stagg spent 13 months in custody for a murder he did not commit. He then spent 14 years as a social pariah, living under the shadow of public suspicion while the real killer sat in a psychiatric hospital. After receiving his compensation, Colin gave interviews. He said he had low self-esteem before this all started, and this knocked him back further. He said the experience had stolen the best years of his life. He had never harmed anyone. He had simply walked his dog on Wimbledon Common. In January 2007, the Home Office confirmed Stagg would receive compensation. He also received a personal apology from Robert Napper, delivered via Napper's QC. Andre Hanscom later wrote a letter of apology to Colin Stagg. He acknowledged that he had trusted the police investigation and had unintentionally helped intensify suspicion around an innocent man. Colin Stagg published 2 books about his experience. He called one of them Pariah. That is what they made him.
Alexander Louis Hanscom was 2 years old on the morning his mother was killed. He grew up in rural France. His father, Andre, made the decision to relocate the family, fearing for Alex's safety while the real killer was still unidentified. He spent his childhood and adolescence abroad, away from the country that had taken his mother and then splashed her death across every front page for years. His earliest memories are of seeing his mother murdered. Alex gave his first press interview in 2011. He said he was remarkably lacking in self-pity, bitterness, or the need for revenge. He said, "The first time I saw Napper's picture, I felt nothing. Putting him behind bars brings me no satisfaction. I'd forgiven my mom's killer long before I knew it was Napper." He added, he had a tough upbringing and childhood. He was a schizophrenic. He tried to commit suicide after his first attack on a woman before my mom, so he knew what he was doing was wrong. Alex wrote a memoir in 2017 called Letting Go, a true story of murder, loss, and survival. He now lives in Barcelona. He works as a yoga teacher. He speaks 4 languages. He still has his mother's bottle of cocoa by Chanel. He still has her jewelry. He still has her photographs. His mother's legacy, what he wants it to be, is police reform. The police made a series of mistakes. I believe the same would happen now, sadly. Their mistakes led to over 80 women being assaulted. For as long as there is a culture of dark corridors in the police force, I feel that terrible mistakes like those in my mom's case will happen again. In June 2009, the Independent Police Complaints Commission released a damning report. It concluded that the Metropolitan Police had made a catalog of bad decisions and errors that led to missed opportunities to take Napper off the streets before he killed Rachel Nickell and the Bissets. The IPCC found that police had failed to sufficiently investigate after Napper's mother reported him in 1989. They found that investigators had eliminated Napper from the Green Chain Rape inquiry based on his height, despite conflicting witness reports. They found that on 2 occasions when citizens identified Napper from a police sketch, officers failed to follow through. No police officer would face disciplinary action. They had all retired. 1 key senior detective had died.
Criminal prosecutions were not considered. In 2010, Andre and Alex Hanscom lodged a complaint over the Metropolitan Police's failure to capture Napper with the European Court of Human Rights. The system that failed Rachel Nickell was never held accountable. Rachel Nickell was 23 years old. She went for a walk on a Tuesday morning with her little boy and her dog. She never came home. For 16 years, the wrong man suffered while the right one walked free. And a system that destroyed an innocent man's life, destroyed the lives of Samantha and Jasmine Bissett too, faced no consequences whatsoever. Rachel, Samantha, Jasmine. Remembered. Some cases close. The darkness never does. This has been Gone Cold. If this story stayed with you, it should.